So, welcome to The Last Meal on Earth. Today we have Sanjeev Shetty, who's a writer, author, and journalist. Hello to yourself. And
Good
the first
afternoon.
question, oh, thank you very much. And the first question is effectively, where were you born? Where did you grow up? And where you
Yeah.
live now?
So I was born in 1971 in London. Um, I think I have to clear this up a little bit because sometimes I say I was born in Chiswick because that's what my mum told me.
Mhm.
But really, I was born in Hounslow. And Chiswick's in the borough of Hounslow. But I think that my mum always had designs on being what she thought was better than herself. So Chiswick is, one of the most expensive parts of London. Hounslow isn't.
Yeah.
Hounslow's full of what I'd call our people, my people. People who look a bit more like me, people of dark skin color. So I was born in Hounslow. We only lived there for 2 years, for which I have no memory of. I've got to tell you that now, Martin. But we then moved to Maidenhead in Berkshire, which is what I mean for and a lot of people think that Maidenhead is in Kent, so that's Maidstone. Maidenhead is Berkshire. It's near Windsor Castle, and I lived there mostly until I was the age of 25. And in that time between 2 and 25, I went to university, got jobs, but yeah, Maidenhead is basically where I did the bulk of my growing up.
I see. And what was your life before you were pursuing sort of the journalism, the writer, as well as being an author? I mean, what were you doing in that period?
I mean, growing up, having a lot of fun. I've got two boys. I've got two sons myself. I was one of two boys, and I kind of worry for my children, as any father does. But I worry about this generation because
Mm.
they don't seem to get the same basic pleasure that I did when I was their age of just going out, meeting people, playing sport, meeting people, going for coffee, whatever, just having fun. That's all I seemed to do when I was young.
Yeah.
I've got no negative memories of being young, even though I'd say probably, compared to now, I had, an interesting upbringing. I had a mother and father who didn't like each other a great deal. I had a father who was of the old school of disciplining, which would be shunned now or frowned upon. But
Mm.
we had fun. Me and my brother, we just used to go out and play football or tennis or whatever. I learned how to play golf when I was 18 or 19. So just always having fun, Martin. I can't remember not having a fun day.
Yes, and I think at those times it
Yeah,
wasn't extortionate to actually pay for those things.
yeah,
I
yeah,
remember
yeah,
a round of golf for a junior. I think it was £3, which I think back then was quite reasonable.
yeah. Exactly. I think when I went to university, I went to Keele University, and we had a golf course, literally opposite the campus, and it was £3 or £4 to play around. That was literally the best fun you could ever have. Spend. Obviously, I should have been studying hard at it, and I never did. But just those sort of things. It was not free, but it was cheaper. It was easier, and the camaraderie that you get. I being a public school boy, I probably struggled a little bit when I got to university because I was so used to living a life of privilege, and I couldn't understand that other people didn't. And after it took me about 2 or 3 months to realize, in fact, I was so lucky from what I'd come from that the people that I was hanging out with had never had the life that I'd had.
Mhm.
And once I got used to the fact that, in fact, I was the arse, and it wasn't really good people, university became a lot more of a pleasurable experience. But yeah, prior to go to university, just so much fun.
Mhm.
Um, and like I said, I love sport. That was the thing I always loved, watching or playing sport. So if I couldn't watch sport, I'd play sport. If I couldn't play sport, I'd watch sport. That sort of thing. So football daft. Every other sport it seemed fairly daft about. Apart from the things that had racing at the end of it. So I didn't like horse racing. and I didn't like motor racing very much. But everything else, especially things that had a ball in it, yeah, I could watch all day or play all day.
So, was there any definitive time where you realized that you determined exactly what you were going to do with your life?
I can give you the date. I can't give you the exact time, but I can give you the date. It was November the 15th, 1992. And I was, let's not get too intimate on this, but I was with my wife-to-be in her room at university. And the previous Friday, it was Friday the 13th. My favourite boxer of all time back then was a man called Evander Holyfield. And he just lost his first fight. And I was absolutely heartbroken, in a completely stupid, really sort of feeling sorry for yourself kind of way. I was walking around all in black, and I didn't know how I was going to, make myself feel better, because doing any sort of like university work was not on the agenda. But my wife had a copy of the, I think it was the Observer, and there was a fight report on the fight. It was Evander Holyfield versus Riddick Bowe. And the fight report was written by a man called Hugh McIlvanney. I don't know how much you know about your sport or the journalism around it, but I didn't know that much about Hugh McIlvanney. I found out a lot afterwards. But the report that he wrote was just the most beautiful 1,000, 2,000 words of prose. And I just looked at that and I thought, I want to do that. And I had no idea really what I wanted to do. I thought I was going to leave university and do something like marketing or something like that. But all of a sudden I thought, well, this is what I want to do. And that put me on a path. And I don't want to cut ahead to where we might go. But one of the great aspects of my life is the fact that I got to meet Hugh McIlvanney. Because I wrote him a letter. Yeah, I wrote him a letter saying, how do I become you, basically? And he gave me some advice. And then round about, I think it was 2000, or 2001, I went to Las Vegas to cover a boxing fight. And the first person I saw was Hugh McIlvanney. And I said, Mr. McIlvanney, do you remember me? And he went, actually, I do remember you. And I thought, there's no way he could remember me. But he did. We had 2 great nights drinking a fair amount. He liked to smoke cigars. Back then I smoked cigarettes. So that's when I knew what I wanted to do. And one of the great things about my life is I got to meet the man who inspired me to be the person I am.
So how do you get into the profession of being a journalist? Can you you formally trained, or
it was a lot harder back then, or it might be easier. I'm not sure. So I did a 4-month journalism training course in Mitcham in London, and they basically take you through the idea of news writing, feature writing, layout, everything around it. But, I mean, this is before social media, so it was just print. It was just print then, and after that, I must have sent out about 200 job applications to be anything in journalism. I mean, wasn't just sport, anything. And I got 199 rejections. 198. So I got 2 people came back to me. One was Sunrise Radio, who are based in Southall in London. And they had an opening for a trainee broadcaster kind of person. And the other one was from All Sport, a sports picture agency based in Collier's Wood. And they wanted someone who was going to be an overseas network coordinator. And the money from both was absolutely scandalous. I mean, even back then, it was scandalous. I think I was offered $6,000 a year for the Sunrise thing and 7.5 for the All Sport one. I think in retrospect, I probably should have taken the Sunrise thing because it was closer to the journalism I wanted to do.
I see.
But All Sport was sport. I just thought that would get me in. And with that job, I got to meet people like Prince Nassim Hamed, people of that ilk. So it was really sort of like a starting block. So I did that for about a year. Got fairly dissatisfied with the money and the hours and all that. And then I managed to start volunteering at my local radio station, which was Star FM in Slough. And they wanted someone to work on the sports desk. That was 1 day a week, but I used to come in the evenings and help out. And then I managed to get myself a Monday to Friday job just to pay the bills. And I did that I felt like ages, but it was probably in about 2.5 years. And then I got a job at the BBC. And once I got a job at the BBC, and the job at the BBC was basically doing the same job, the same sort of part-time job that I was doing, which was recruitment, which was nothing to do with what I wanted to do. But I knew that if I worked within recruitment, I'd get to see the jobs that were coming up at the BBC, and I'd apply for them and then get the job that I really wanted to do. So we've gone from 1994 to about, I'd say, 1998. And in 1998, just as it was about to turn into 1999, I finally got the job at the BBC as a broadcast assistant working in sport on the new website, the BBC Sport Online, which of course now is a huge thing. I was one of 5 people and because I got in quite early doors, I managed to go up quite quickly through the chain of command. So I went from being a broadcast assistant to being a journalist within 6 months.
So thinking back, what was the piece of work that you did that you were most excited about, and which one that you'd wish you'd rewritten before it went out?
I mean, way too many that I've done that I wish I could look at again. But you live with that disappointment, I think, after a while. I mean, and working on Sport Online, it was churning. I mean, literally, there was so much work to be done on a daily basis, so you can't remember every article that you wrote. But if I had my chance to do it differently, I think that when I was really lucky, I got to go to Las Vegas. Got to go to Memphis in 2002 to cover Lennox Lewis versus Mike Tyson, which was like the fight of the generation back then. The problem was that I was vying within my own company for billing because it was also the World Cup. It was the World Cup in Japan and Hong Kong. So if you remember, that was the one where David Beckham got his kind of redemption after being sent off back in 1998. So everything I was doing, I was getting the word from my editor saying, "Yeah, it's good, but you don't have to compete with the biggest sport in the UK." So I kind of wish that I had, when I was there in Memphis, just been a little bit more different and just done things a little bit differently, as opposed to the idea that I had to do things the way they had always been done. Maybe I could just spend more hours off book and gone and got an exclusive with Mike Tyson, which I was offered the chance to go and interview Mike Tyson, but it meant I would have to hang around with Peter Tatchell, who, if you remember Peter Tatchell, a famous campaigner for equality for the LGBTQ plus community. And only on the basis that I just didn't know how I was going to get to where he was going to go, and I didn't know how I was going to get back, I just turned it down. And that's the thing I should have done. I should have gone with him, got the interview with Mike Tyson, and that would have alerted people back in London that actually what I was doing was meant quite a lot, but I didn't. And I I try not to beat myself up too much about things because you can't. And like I said, I'm father of 2, so I'm always making decisions that I probably think I could have done that differently. But I could have done that differently. So that was one thing I could have done differently. On the flip side, back in probably about 2 years earlier, I convinced the guys I work with to let me go to Sheffield to cover a 5-bout event, which ended up with a guy called Paul Ingle, who was defending his world title, getting seriously hurt. And it turned out to be a front page splash, and that was all my own doing because no one had gone out and covered anything back then for that website. No one knew how to do it, so I got the bull by the horns, took a laptop with me, and started typing all the way through. Probably worked about 25 hours straight. So that's the thing that I'm probably the most proud of back then, because it was the thing that made people realize, this guy's serious. He knows what he's doing.
So is there any particular process that you follow in journalism, or is it just that you just turn up and sort of, I mean, I would expect, if you've got a lot of sports like football and hockey and tennis, it's almost describing it on a point by point and then picking out the best bits or the turning points. But is there a particular formula that you follow?
Not really. I mean, and I say this, I left the sports journalism industry 3 years ago now. But I think I remember, obviously I worked with loads of people at the BBC, loads of brilliant people. There was one guy who said to me, because I was in between being a producer, a writer, and a presenter, so I did some TV presenting as well. And he said to me, and I think he meant it in a kind of like a complimentary but reality way. He said, the thing about you is what you've got the knowledge. And back then, when we're talking, 13, 14 years ago when we had this conversation, I was encyclopedic about everything that was going on. I worked on BBC World in the end. That's where I ended my career at the BBC.
Mm-hmm.
And BBC World TV was, as it sounds, we covered everything all around the world. So if there was badminton taking place in Japan, then we would cover it, if that makes any sense.
Yes, yes.
So that was the thing, and I had a really good knowledge of what was going on. And it occurs to me that my knowledge was really good then, because now when I read what's happening in the world, I have no idea what's going on because I don't pay attention to it anymore. You pay attention to it when it's your job.
Yes.
But my basic premise of how I would approach my job back then was to know what was going on. And if I knew what was going on, then I knew how to set my running order. So, I finished when I was working at BBC, my last job was as a producer, producing 20-minute programs on a daily basis about the way the world had been sport-wise. And it had changed from being just a results service where all I would do would be cut out the pictures and show you the best pictures, to writing words to it. And it became more political by the end. So there's a story that I remember doing towards the end, which it resonates with me because it was so different from the work I was doing when I started. And it was a trans athlete who was, I think it might be a triathlete, and we had got her on to answer words from Martina Navratilova. I'm so unlucky that, in the sense, I never got to cover Martina because I'm too young. But I was covering her then, but for a completely different reason. And it resonated with me because I was thinking it was never the sort of story I would ever have done. That in whatever it was, 2021 or whatever it was, that I would have another athlete calling her transphobic. I never thought that was the sort of thing I would end up doing, if that makes any sense. So that's how my sports world changed. It became more political, less results orientated. So the kind of thing that got me into this thing in the first place, that Hugh McElmany report about one guy winning and one guy losing, became fairly irrelevant by the time I'd left. It was not quite the industry that I thought it was going to be, which is not to say that it's worse. It's just different. And I think when you come into something when you're, I was in my mid-20s when I wanted to get in, or when I was in my very early 20s when I wanted to get in, but I was in my mid-20s when I got in. By the time I left, I was in my 50s. And things were different, and it would be really hard for me to get back into it now.
So that moves us on to the next question is, what have you moved? What projects are you currently involved in, and what other future projects do you have?
Well, I'll sort of bookend it for you a little bit, Martin. So I don't know what TV you like, but I've got two TV shows which are my favourites of all time. One is Friends, like probably half the world, and the other one is The West Wing. And as far as I'm concerned, The West Wing is the best thing that's ever been written, that's been made into a TV programme. And I started watching that around about 2004, I think it was. And the reason I started watching it then was because it had been out for years. But my first son was born in 2003, and he never slept. That bugger never, ever slept. And even now he doesn't sleep, and he's 20, going on 21. So I used to have to go upstairs and just hold him and watch something on TV. And at first I was holding him and playing something on the PlayStation or something. But I just thought, I need to start watching something. So he was with me. And I remember going to HMV, and they had box sets of The West Wing for the first 2 series for 20 quid. So I bought it and I started watching it. And it was, like I said, it's the best thing I ever saw. And what really appealed to me was seeing Rob Lowe walking around in a suit being a speechwriter. And I thought, do you know what? I'd love to be that. I've conquered all my dreams, in terms of being a sports journalist. By that stage, I'd written books, everything. But I thought it'd be really cool if I could be a speechwriter with it. So I did a course in being a speechwriter with a guy called Simon Lancaster. He's based in central London. That was back in 2018, I think it was. I'd left some sort of impression on him, because fast forward 3 years after that, and I got an email from him saying, "Do you fancy getting into speechwriting?" I went, "Yeah, okay." Because by that stage, I conquered everything I wanted to do in sports journalism. And he said, "I've got a gig for you. It's only 6 months, but it'll be a way in." He said, "I can't tell you all the details, but I will do." So he called me up a couple of days later. He said, "Right, okay, I can tell you a bit more now. It'd be working for Sadiq Khan." And I was like, "Oh my, oh my God."
That's a good and bad post, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I've got all the admiration in the world for him, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a second, because my whole life has changed over the years. But that was it. They just said it's 3 to 6 months. You make of it what you want. And by that stage, I was financially fairly comfortable, in the sense that we didn't have a mortgage or anything like that. Boys were quite grown up. We'd saved enough money so that if they want to go to university, we could pay for a certain part of it.
Yeah.
So all that was to one side. So I said to my wife, "What do you think?" And she said, "Look, if you want to do it, do it. We can. If it doesn't work out, we can cope with it." So I did it, and I did it for. It was more like a year that I did it for. But I bounced around in the GLA afterwards, doing other things, working in communications departments for them. But it's completely different to anything I've ever done. I was just a slave to deadlines until I worked for them, and it's very hard to get your head around something different. So that was from 2021 through to 2023, and then I had a year out of work. I was writing memoirs, and now currently I'm doing communications and content for the National Residential Landlords Association, who are based in Manchester and London. It sort of has echoes of what I was doing as a speechwriter, in the sense that I'm getting lots of different kind of things that I have to write. Sometimes it's news pieces, sometimes it's longer pieces, sometimes it's features, that sort of stuff. But it's interesting, and it's taken me away completely from what I was doing before. I don't miss writing about sport, which is so funny, because it's all I actually ever wanted to do, and I thought it would be enough for me. And probably, to be honest, it would have been enough for me. But when someone gives you a choice to do, or a chance to do something different, and you're in the situation when you can do that, then, and if you've got that kind of brain that thinks, "Yeah, I think I need to do something different," I'll do it. I look around my other mates. I've got, I'd say 3 or 4 really close friends who've all basically done the same thing all their life. And by the end of the evening, when you've had a few too many, there is the odd quote aimed at me, as if to say, "Well, I admire you. You took a chance. You did something different." I'm thinking, "No, I didn't really take a chance. Someone actually gave me the chance." And I took it. I didn't like. I wasn't saying, "Look, I'm done. I've had enough of sports journalism." So I carried on doing sports journalism until retirement. 55, 60, whatever. But it was something different. I wanted to do it, and I haven't even talked about the books or anything like that. But it was just something I wanted to do. Got to do it, and I couldn't be more grateful.
So how do you get your head around you're going from writing pieces that had a particular deadline, where you have fairly loose but firm deadlines, and do you end up sort of grooming the piece too much, or do you actually try and do it so that it's sort of at least no more than 7 rewrites but more than 4 sort of reality?
So it's really weird, because I've the last couple of weeks I've been trying to the guys that work and there's such a wide bunch of people that works at the NRLA. There's a bunch of guys who work in research who are already always finding out based on surveys or focus groups about trends, or we currently got the intention to vote, because obviously we've got the general election coming up on July the 4th, and how a landlord's going to vote, what's going to influence them. So you get all this information, then you got to find a way to repackage it, repurpose it, and you can look at that all day and come back to it the following day, think, no, I've done that differently. Oh, I would do that differently. Or as I said to a colleague the other day, you do sometimes go to bed with the knowledge of what you've got to do the following day, even though you've done it for the whole day. So it's always a thing of second guessing, as opposed to sports journalism, where I think straight away that's the top line and that's it, and you go with it. I think the other thing that's really, and I'm sure you've gone through this, Martin, is that the way we work is so different. My whole career at the BBC, apart from the last year, was in the office or going out to events. And now it's all, I go in to my current role, I go into the office once a week at best. And I've always been told that, look, it's up to you, really. But that cooperation, that always conferring with someone, that's gone, which I miss, because I think that would have made my life a lot easier with the jobs that I've done since I left the BBC, because the only way to know how to do things differently is if you've got that person on your shoulder saying, right, don't do that, don't do this. Because I think the natural human reaction to being told, what do you reckon, is to say, oh, do I have to go through this? And just be left on your own. And then they will end up doing it for themselves. So that's it's a tricky thing. I think I'm getting closer, but I know I'm not there yet.
So yeah, I mean, the thing that I was thinking is that if you've got the statistics of sport, there's only really one interpretation.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's fair.
If you have statistics of, related to housing and the way people, interpretations can run,
That's true, but I think with sport, it's changed so much as well. So, for instance, yesterday, Gareth Southgate named his squad for the Euro 2024, and he left a lot of people out who might have been going. So then you've got to work out who's the biggest name that's been left out. Is it Jack Grealish, or is it who's the other guy, James Maddison? That sort of thing. And I can imagine the conversations that I would have had in the office about that.
Yes.
And I would have argued till I was blue in the face that it should have been Maddison, it should have been Grealish. So there's similarity in that as well. I think a lot of it is opinion. Like I said, this piece I just did about the intention to vote. So I couldn't work out whether the best line was it twice as many. No, that's the universal credit one, which is twice as many landlords now are accepting tenants who are on universal credit. Was that the best line? Or equally, the piece I just about the intention to vote, which was it that landlords basically don't know who they're going to vote for, don't care, or is it also the fact that landlords actually don't care what the policies are? I don't know what was the top line of that, and that's the thing that it does change. And I'm working with a journalist, and she's been a journalist for some very, very top-rated publications, and I know she's got a much sharper eye for these sort of things than I have at the moment. But I think she's expecting me to catch up. I'm hoping I will do.
But I think landlords, each and every landlord is specific, but normally you have the landlords who have everything paid up and they're pretty nice. You've got landlords that are everything paid up, then they don't want to fix anything. And you've got landlords that are just starting out on this journey and they can't really have any money taken off them because it's all going on the paying back the mortgage. So it's very difficult to distill, a very complex argument into a number of phrases. It's where I see TV going, because we don't want to do anything that is complex. We want to do stories on the news especially in the morning, that which are simplistic.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
that's the way I sit. So we've got about 6 minutes on this side. So what I'd like to do is, I don't know, how do you think it went? I mean, you've led a very interesting career,
yeah,
and
yeah. It's, do you know what I I sent I found something on LinkedIn the other day. It was a story about these two boys who had spotted a bloke who was about to throw himself in front of a train. And there's these two, you might have seen it on these two guys went out their way to talk him down from it. And these two boys were 14 or 15.
yeah.
So it's a really, really positive thing to think about young boys being like that. And so I found that story and I shared it with my eldest son. And my eldest son got it and he said, "You are just so positive, aren't you, Dad?" And I don't know another way to be. I just don't. I don't. Um, and it you know, we haven't talked about my health yet or anything like that, but it's just the way I approach life. And I've had knocks, I've had loads of knocks, um, but
Yeah,
I just love life. I get up every morning and I don't think, oh shit. I particularly like it at the moment because you know the sun's out when you get up. You know, I much prefer. I'm much more of a summer boy. Summer boy. Don't like the winter. You know, I don't like the long nights. I like long days. It makes me feel like something good's going to happen.
yeah.
I think I've had probably. I think, you know what, my oldest friend, you know, who I've known since I was 3. You know, we were in kindergarten together, and he lives in Hong Kong, but we see each other probably once every 3 or 4 years.
Mm, mm, mm.
And he came to see me recently because he'd seen a picture of me where I didn't look well. I looked like I lost a lot of weight or something. And he just looked, he said, "Sanj, you just had an amazing career." And I went, "Yeah, do you know what? If I think about it long enough, yeah, probably I think I have, but I can't look at it like that until I'm done. And I will say when I'm done. And I would be done either at 55 or 60, whatever the age is." So yeah, it's been great. It's been varied,
Yeah.
but it's also run parallel to having a great home life as well.
So we got about 4 minutes left. So
Mm.
if we reconvene in about 20 minutes, I mean,
Yeah.
I was very negative because I was a sort of premature birth. I lost my hearing at 2, got it back at 5 because of an operation. I had chronic eczema, so I would wake up and the blood would congeal on my pajamas and I had to scrape them off. And then I had a stammer and so forth. And I mean, it's probably only the last sort of 10 years I've been sort of erring on the side of optimistic, because if you don't do that, you know, I mean, I find, you know, if you're more optimistic, then you get more out of people. I mean, it's like me, and you think, well, I mean, now I've known your journey, and then lots of other people you're going to know your journey. Sometimes it's just the luck of the draw, and other times it's just that tenacity to get in a role.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like at the moment, you know, 55, and they just sort of throw you away. And I've seen it, you know, when people look at people's CVs. I mean, one manager I had, he threw up the CVs in the air, and the one few that it landed at the top, he would pick out on the phone. So it's a lottery, and I think the majority of times it's who you know, unfortunately, who can get you those roles. Because,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Well, I did. I mean, I didn't know anyone. That's the thing. When I got into sports journalism, that was
yes,
all
yes.
luck. That was all luck and draw.
I know.
I I my job I got at the BBC that got me in the broadcast assistant job. I applied for a news assistant job,
Mm-hmm.
um, and the guy who was recruiting rang me up and he said that, "Why are you pissed off that you didn't get this job?" I said, "Well, I've got loads of experience." And the CV had said that I only had 4 months experience, not 2 years and 4 months.
Yes, yes, yes.
Um, So he rang me up and he went, "Oh," he said, "Well, I'm sorry, we filled that already." He said, "But would you be interested in doing the sports role?" And I said, "That's even better." And literally, I used to work in a recruitment office in Shepherd's Bush, which was, I don't know how well you know Shepherd's Bush, but it's on the corner. It was near the Empire, and
Okay,
between the Empire and where TVC was, it's it was like a 500-yard dash. So I ran up to the office and said, "Yes, I'll do it." And he said, "Right, fine." So he convened 3 people to do the interview. One person from HR, him, and one of the guys who work in the department, said, "Yeah, and just to check that I could speak English," and that was it. And I had the job. And I remember coming home that evening, and I was in floods of tears.
The next topic to talk about are your hobbies. So, what hobbies do you like to entertain yourself with, or what interests do you have while you're not working?
I mean, it's kind of difficult now with the hobbies because I have fairly chronic MS, so there isn't much I can do in my spare time apart from watch TV or talk to my very growing young sons who are 20 and 19, one of whom is at university and the other one is currently resitting his A-levels. Or spending great time with my wife, who, bless her, is very patient and, realizes that we don't live the kind of life that we used to. But I would say we still manage to do things. So a couple of weeks ago, we went to London to see one of my best friends get married. She's 20. No, she's 32. She got married at St. Paul's, so that was quite the do.
Nice.
Yeah, and then tonight we are going to go and see the Christians at the. So we live in Sale in Manchester, and they're playing at the Waterside. It's kind of like an evening with the Christians, so I don't know how much singing they'll be doing. I think it's going to be more conversational kind of thing.
Reminiscing, is it?
Exactly, yeah. And the thing is that my wife and I, when we met 32 years ago, one of the first things we did, we saw the Christians play at Kew University. So it's kind of a bit nostalgia. So a bit of that and a bit of cinema as well. Like we do, Laura and I watch quite a lot of television. So we're currently watching a miniseries called Super Sex on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen it. It's all about an Italian porn star who's done more than 1,000 films. His name is Rocco. It's quite, it started off really different, because it's all in Italian. So it's much more like an origin story. But for the last 3 or 4 episodes, it has been, for lack of a better phrase, Martin, quite a lot of in and out. And we'll leave it there. So we watch quite a lot of TV. We go to the cinema as much as we can. But I'm wheelchair bound now when I go out. So it is just getting out and just, inhaling a bit and getting a bit of fresh air. And like I said, watch a lot of sport. So I will be logging off at 5 tonight. And there will then be the best part of 7 or 8 T20 cricket matches for me to catch up on this weekend. And then we've got 2 months now until the start of the Premier League football season. And of course, we've got the Euros coming up as well. So there's always things to me to do.
Always some sport to watch.
Exactly. Lots of sport. Or watch other TV. Quite like the quiz shows as well. So I do watch quite a lot of The Chase and Tipping Point. And a little guilty pleasure is Laura and we watch Made in Chelsea. I think mostly to remind ourselves of what it's like to live in London, because it's been 12 years now since we left.
Well, I wouldn't have thought that would be a representation for most people, though. But
I know. I imagine it's just. You know what? I'll try and use the nicest word possible. It's interesting to watch how life is for the other half, or the other 5% or 1%.
Well, it's probably
how they live their life.
It's more like 0.2%, isn't it?
Exactly. Not even that. Probably not even that much part.
So do you?
It's just fun. I'm in terms of remaining positive, I'm a great believer in making sure you don't take life too seriously.
So do you listen to a great deal of music at all to relax, or are you mainly on the TV?
I mean, No, it's mostly TV. I think. I mean, if, for instance, if I get up when I get up, in the morning, and I'm up before everyone else to start work, I'll go downstairs, have my cereal or whatever, and then put Alexa on or whatever it is, and just play whatever music comes to mind that I fancy listening to, because we've got Apple Music, so we can listen to any song that's ever been made. I think probably in the history of the world. But for instance, I know Taylor Swift brought out a double album, or it was a couple of months ago. I haven't listened to it yet, Martin.
Yeah.
It's not because I think she's terrible or anything like that. It's just not me.
No, no, no.
I can't really get on board with that angst that you might be feeling when you're in your early to mid 20s or late 20s or whatever. I sort of had a confession with my wife the other day, which is that I'll say which music I like, which music means a lot to me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'd be damned if I could tell you what any of it meant. I never
No.
really listened to the word; I just listened to the sound. Just anything that comes on. I do like, I listen to quite a few podcasts. So at the moment, I listen to a podcast to do with my favourite football team, but I also listen to podcasts at the moment that Christina Applegate has started doing. And it's her and a friend of hers, another Hollywood friend, and they both got MS. So that's quite a nice thing to listen to.
Yes, yes.
So I think I see probably podcasts more than music. I think is probably the way I go, which my wife hates, because my wife hates podcasts.
I do like podcasts
Yeah,
because it's some, well, I mean, you can listen to them and hoover up quite a lot of information about people's journeys in life. That's what a lot of them are about.
yeah,
While doing other things, driving your car and what have you. You don't have
yeah,
to fully focus, because I find with TV, unless there's a small fraction of it, you're not fully focused, because
right,
it's what I call chewing gum TV.
right, yeah,
It's sort of, it's not really there. I mean, if I want to while away at time, some time, I've got other things that I want to do than watching
sure.
chewing TV. So it's brought on to the next bit, which is probably more important for myself. What is the best cuisine that you've had? And it can be either in a particular restaurant, or it can be cuisine de la maison.
I mean, I'm sure you'll be shocked to learn that with a name like Shetty, Indian food ranks very highly
No,
in the
of
food.
course it doesn't.
Um, so yeah, Indian food. We just found a great Indian restaurant in Didsbury. I mean, when I say found, I mean it's been there for ages. But I was only alerted to it about a month ago, 2 months ago, called the Great Kathmandu. So of my Indian food, I've always preferred Nepalese. So we had a great Nepalese back in Shepherd's Bush, which I always thought about Shepherd's Bush. But obviously I don't live there anymore. So we found this great one in Didsbury. Been there twice now, and it's been brilliant every time. Just a lot more flavour. And I think, do you know what? I think what's interesting is that, and I said this a few weeks ago, I went to an Indian restaurant here in Sale, and they do the same cuisine as the takeaway that I get all my stuff from. So it's almost like it's a part ownership kind of thing.
Yes, yes.
But going to the restaurant was just so much more of an experience than actually just having a takeaway. Sitting down, having conversation, getting the wine, or I don't drink beer anymore, so I'll have a glass of wine. My mate had a beer, and just that conversation. But the food is crisper, it's tastier. So yeah, Indian food ranks the highest of everything. And when I was growing up, it was kind of like a split in my house. So my father and I liked the Indian food. My mother and my younger brother liked Chinese food. So I'm just as comfortable with Chinese food as I am Indian food. But if I had a preference, I'd say Indian food. Especially because I think almost always when you go to an Indian restaurant or a takeaway, you'll order too much, and you'll always have something for the day after.
So do you go for lassis at all?
No, I'm much more. I mean, You want my standard Indian meal would start with papadums,
Yes.
because I might be Indian, but I'm also English as well. So I have papadums and a few pickles. I'll probably have a chicken tikka starter or a seekh kebab starter, and then my main will be something. It will either be lamb or chicken. Recently, I've been having a lamb dish. I've been having lamb karai, or lamb jalfrezi, and I'll have that with either a couple of chapatis or a parota, and some pilau rice. And I do like to have a little yogurt with it. I'm not a big fan of Indian desserts. That's the thing that I don't quite work out. I've never been.
They're very, very sugary. So
Yeah, yeah.
do you like your sort of dishes to be fairly dry, or do you like them sort of being fairly swimming in liquid and tomatoes and what have you?
I could go either way. I could go either
Oh,
way.
okay.
I'm not too fussed. Um, I know. I presume you're going to ask me what's my favourite of all time. Like, what's the last dish I'm going to have on earth in a second? So I won't answer it until you ask me.
So, what is, I suppose, outside of Indian food and
Yeah.
other regions related, what has been your best food experience?
So it's quite hard. I hope I don't get too emotional on this. The best cook I ever knew, and I'm sure this goes for a lot of men, was my mum. My mum was an amazing cook, and she's not with us anymore. She passed away. Coming up to passed away in 2015, so that's 9 years. That will be 9 years this year. But she was an amazing cook. I don't know if you remember growing up with Madhur Jaffrey doing cooking programs on the BBC. So we used to watch that every now and then. And Madhur Jaffrey once did, and she obviously did loads of things. But one of the dishes that she did was a meatball curry.
Mm.
And I remember watching that with my mum, and went, "God, that looks good, mum." And my mum's the sort of person, I think she's very competitive as well. So she said, "I'll do that." So she went away, and when I came home from school the following day or whatever, there it was, the meatball curry right in front of me, lamb meat, cooked in a lovely sauce, with lots of rice, and I think probably as I got older, I was, if I was ever an absolute CUNT to anyone, it was probably to my mum, But I would always pick at things and go, "Oh, it'd be nice to have this or that." So I might have had it for toast every now and then. But that would be my last meal on earth. If we could get my mum back from wherever she is, to say, "Mum, could you just cook your son meatball curry one more time?" And the thing about the meatball curry was so good was the fact that I tried to make it myself. I've made it probably 7 or 8 times. I once made it for my mother-in-law, who loved it. She destroyed it. I mean, she didn't leave anything for me. But I know that, and this is the thing, this connection between the mother and the son, is that I could never make it as good as Mum did. But I would say, if you ask me for my last dish on earth, it would be if we could exhume my mother. I've got her ashes downstairs, and just bring her back, and just, if she could expect me meatball curry one more time, that would be enough for me.
So, would there be small meatballs or just a few bit large meat?
They're about, I don't know if
Are they
that's
quite
about that
large? Yeah.
size. Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, but I think she was very. She said always say, "Don't make them too big. Just make them like that." And I mean, she used to give me advice about cooking, taste it, and say, "No, I could do better." That was my mum. That was the one. My mum was quite a character, but yeah, just enough so that you don't make them so. If you make them too big, you'll lose the flavour. That's
Yes.
the thing. Yeah. So make them big enough so they are something, but don't make them too big so they're nothing. If that makes any sense.
You probably want them as big enough so the sauce can soak into the middle. I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
without
yeah.
them
And
being
also,
too small.
yeah, yeah. And she used to say about them, make sure you drain the fat before you cook them. If
Yes.
you cook them with the fat, it'll be nothing. So make sure you drain the fat out of it. She was, there was a process the way my mum cooked, which I think probably if I studied it a bit more, I'd be all right. But I don't think I have ADHD or anything, but I was a kid. So as a kid, you want to do other things, don't you? You've always got other things you want to be doing. So there would be something on TV that I could watch while she was cooking. I couldn't sit with her for the whole time. And the other thing is, she was quite private about that sort of thing. So she was like, "Yeah, I don't want you to be with me all the time." So I would go do something else. But if I had studied her properly, then I would know better.
Well, she probably wants to hide her secrets.
Exactly. Yeah, it's always like is it Kung Fu Panda? The secret ingredient to my secret noodle soup is nothing. There was nothing in it at all. But just if you just believe, if you were just told there might be a secret ingredient, you believe it. But there was some sort of secret ingredient in my mum's cooking. I just know what it was.
So do you have a favorite fruit that you like to tuck into, which may be
Oh, I mean,
standard
do you know
or
what?
fairly exotic?
Well, do you know what? I had some cracking strawberries last night. Um, it depends on that day, doesn't it? I mean, I
Yes, yeah.
can't. Um, I like a kiwi. I like a mango. I like strawberries. I like blackberries. I like blueberries. I quite like apples. I like oranges. I think it just depends on the day. I think if you can sell me a yarn, so if you tell me you've just gone to Waitrose and bought me some fruit, I'll be like, oh my god, it's the best fruit I've ever had in my life.
Yes.
And probably it would be just the same if you got it from Aldi. But it's just it. I am. As someone said about me years ago, I am a marketing man stream. So if you tell me where it's from, if you tell me it's from somewhere exotic, I'll be eating it all the time. But actually, I think I like all fruit probably. I think I probably prefer the squishier to the
Oh,
hard
so they're
stuff.
quite tough,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, some soft fruit probably does more for me than the hard stuff. So which is funny because I quite like mango, which is somewhere in between, isn't it?
No, I'm a bit lazy. I like a banana because you
Right.
don't
Okay.
do much work, do you?
No. No.
Everything else is a lot of work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've come to the last meal. Would it be something that you'd like to dress up for or be fairly formal? Informal, sorry.
Oh, do you want? That's tricky because as I've become more disabled, I eat like a disabled person now as well. So the chances are, if I had something nice on, I'd get shit all over it. So I would go somewhere in between formal and casual, if that makes any sense. So jeans, I'll put jeans on for it. That's quite an effort for it.
What the
Like a nice shirt, probably.
Yes, yes.
Uh, and yeah, and then I would have. So if my mum can't be here to make this meal, then and she didn't drink a great deal, she didn't drink anything really. I'll have it with a glass of red wine as well.
And would you invite all your friends and family around, or would it be more, one to one, or just the family?
It's really weird because I would probably have, if it's my last meal, it would obviously have to be with my wife and my boys. That's the way it is. And they're the ones who mean the most to me in the world. They're the ones who I do everything for. So yeah, them. If they're not around, if they couldn't make it, then I would definitely have my best mates around. So I've got the one friend in Hong Kong who I've known since I was 3. Got 2 guys I went to university with. We still do everything together when we go out. And there's a very nice lady that I know who lives in an Irish lady who lives in West London. So if those 3 could turn up, that would be great as well. And they're all they could eat anything, I'd say. But I think probably Chinese food would be great for those 3 or 4. Sorry.
And you say you don't like Indian sweets because they are a bit
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
sugary side. Do
yeah.
you have a sweet tooth for any other puddings, or
Oh well, I've got a sweet tooth. I mean, I've currently got 3 boxes of sweets by my feet. Cola cubes, cola bottles,
there
sherbet.
you go.
So yeah, so I'm proper. I would say, um, I had it the other day. It was lovely, and I hadn't had it for ages. An apple strudel.
Nice.
I've not had that for a long, long time. But the only thing about apple strudel is it's quite hard to eat. So if you can't have the strudel, then I'll just have an apple pie.
Mm, yes. And then if you could go back in time from today and talk to your younger self, maybe in their 18s or 21,
Yeah.
what advice would you give them?
Um, Whenever possible, don't be a CUNT. Just always be a nice person. And I think I'm pretty satisfied with most of the things I've done, but I know that every now and then I've overstepped the line,
Yeah.
and I've spoken to people in a way that I shouldn't do, and I regret that. But in terms of advice, I just maintain that attitude, be as positive as you can be, because you'll get punched a few times. It will happen, and you'll think, why did it happen to me? In your lowest moments, you could end up spending days in bed thinking, why did it happen to me? But don't do that. Just make sure you just keep getting up. When that alarm bell rings, if it's 6 in the morning or 7 or whatever, just get up, keep smiling, and just make the most of every moment, like I've tried to do all the time. I couldn't give myself any more advice than I use on a daily basis, which is to have a positive mental attitude, because, like I said, I'm wheelchair bound. I struggle to do most basic things, but the reason I can carry on is because I keep smiling.
Mm-hmm. That's a good advice for everybody.
Yeah.
So the last question on my list is there any question that you thought I would ask that I haven't asked?
I think possibly. I mean, just maybe more about my mum and dad. That's the only thing. I mean, I think someone said to me, I was a closed book, and I thought at that point, this person doesn't know me well enough, because literally I will tell you anything you want to know about me, from my inside leg measurement to anything else. But the one thing I think is quite, and I've told this story to my wife, sometimes is quite captivated by this, not always, is that my mum and dad's journey is quite an interesting one, and that might give more luster to my story, but that I can't think of anything really.
Okay. So thank you very much, Sanjeev Shetty.
Oh, that's one thing. I'm telling you how to say my name properly.
Oh,
So
sorry.
just call me
then.
just call me Sanj.
Oh, Sanj. Oh.
Sanj is fine. Sanj is fine.
So this is Sanj Shetty, who has been with us for the last meal on Earth, who is a writer, author, and a journalist. Thank you very much for your time. And I shall put this on the internet as soon as I can.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.